Good to go. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ellen Dunn. I'm a program coordinator and social worker with Alzheimer's Services. Thank y'all so much for being here today. I'm excited that we're starting our 2022 Lunch and Learn sessions with such a strong presentation to kick off the year with Dana. So just a couple of housekeeping announcements before we get started. If you've attended our Lunch and Learns before, you know that after the Lunch and Learn, I will send out a follow-up email. In the follow-up email will be the link to the recording for Dana's presentation in case there's anybody that you would like to share that with or watch it again. There will also be a link to a survey as well. So if you could participate in that survey for us, it just helps provide us with some good feedback to use for Lunch and Learns in the future. So other than that, I'd like to present our speaker, Miss Dana Territo. Dana calls herself an old soul, as she has always shared a passion and love for the older generation, particularly those affected with Alzheimer's disease. For over 30 years, she has worked and advocated for this population. She was on the committee that started the first Alzheimer's Walk fundraiser in Baton Rouge in 1995 and continued volunteering for that walk for over 25 years. Dana retired in late 2018 as the director of services for Alzheimer's Services of the Capital area, but continues to be a dedicated supporter for the Alzheimer's population. Since 2013, Dana has voluntarily written a weekly Alzheimer's question and answer column in The Advocate, a Baton Rouge-based newspaper, and currently volunteers as a Stephen ministry leader, a caregiving ministry through St. Aloysius Church, as well as assisting families through hospice and his care. Dana recently received the National Tandy Spirit Award from caregiving.com in acknowledgement for her spirit and service to others. Her book, What My Grandchildren Taught Me About Alzheimer's Disease, is slated to be released next fall by Equinox Publishing. Dana completed religious education studies from St. Joseph Benedict College and an internship in spirituality at the Archdiocesan Spirituality School in New Orleans, and she also received a certificate in gerontology. She lives in Baton Rouge currently with her husband, David, and near their 2 sons and daughter-in-laws, as well as their 4 grandchildren. It's such an honor to have Dana with us back here today. So thank you, Dana, so much, and I'll let you take it from here.
Great. I've got my whistle. We're going to start with our warm-ups. As your coach, you know you need to warm up and get ready. So I want everybody to sit up, take a deep breath, get ready to our workout for Team Alzheimer's. So first of all, everyone needs to get in the zone. And by that, I mean, let's get in the right mindset for our season of Alzheimer's, for our caregiving, our Team Alzheimer's. That means getting the momentum, staying in focus, staying in that present moment. And remember, it's all about the process, not the outcome. Stop worrying about the outcome. It's about the process. You know, it's like stop and smelling the roses. We need to let go of what others might think about your caregiving performance. No 2 households of Alzheimer's are the same. Alzheimer's affects each individual uniquely. So no 2 households affected by Alzheimer's are the same. So don't worry about what others might think about your performance. And then let go of those distractions in your life that inhibit your care. Are you second guessing yourself? Are you saying to yourself, oh, I'm not a good caregiver. I'm not helping enough. I'm not doing the right things. This is a trial and error process. We all learn as we go together. So, let go of those distractions and surrender them. And then we want to teach you how to perform functionally. And by that, I mean, on the way, learn the skills and strategies that you need to manage the season of Alzheimer's. There's no perfection. Throw perfection out the window. Keep it simple. We want to just keep everything simple. Avoid overanalyzing everything that's happened. We're going to talk about the worry zone in a few minutes. We don't want to overanalyze or worry because that takes away from our true caregiving and our enjoying that present moment of us getting in the zone. And then stop judging how well you're doing on every play. This is counterproductive. It's berating yourself over your actions. If it didn't work out one time, go to the next play. And then I want you to Stay positive. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but as your coach, of course, I want you to stay positive during our Alzheimer's season. Okay, today we're going to go out in the field and I'm going to teach you some zone defenses. So today we're going to talk about 3 that I'm interested in sharing with you: the development and training zone, worry zone, and the comfort zone. And of course, our comfort zone is that goal, reaching the goal. So our development and training zone, we have to, first I want to go over some eligibility requirements for Team Alzheimer's. And I'm sure you all have these and much, much more, but I just want to show you some eligibility requirements for our team. And of course, it goes without saying that a caregiver is compassionate and loving toward that loved one. You wouldn't be recruited for that if you didn't have that compassionate and loving nature. A really good eligibility requirement is observation. We want the caregiver to observe their loved one in everything that they're doing. This helps the caregiver better manage the Alzheimer's disease by looking at things that the loved one is doing during the day, providing optimal care, what triggers that loved one's emotional expressions or outbursts. So be very observant. And then, of course, I want you to be creative in your workout and your team. And that means looking at new ideas and new perspectives. There's always another way to do things. Maybe it didn't work this time, but try it another way. Be creative in the process. And then, of course, understanding and patience goes hand in hand. That big word, patience. I know my grandson says all the time, I just don't have patience. So patience is a difficult characteristic to obtain, and we lose a lot of patience very many times. That's okay. We move on and go to the next play. Of course, we need to keep flexibility and adaptability on hand too, because we never know in the world of Alzheimer's what kind of day is it going to be. It's a new day each day because the unique way that the disease affects each individual. And then there's that positive attitude again. But not only do I want you to have a positive attitude for your own well-being and for the well-being of your loved one, but also because it has tremendous health benefits to keep that positive attitude. It's great for cardiovascular health. It lowers the rate of depression and distress. It elevates and increases our lifespan, general well-being, and it also is resistant to the common cold. So it's very important as your coach for me to tell you to have that positive attitude. Of course, now we get on the field, and I want you to know the drills. Whether you're a seasoned caregiver or a new caregiver, it is so important to learn as much about the disease as you can. Caring for someone with Alzheimer's is both rewarding and challenging, but the more you know, the better it'll go. So make sure you start on a journey yourself of learning more about the disease, and you're doing that today. Congratulations, go team. But talk to your doctor, make sure you get an accurate diagnosis if you have not done so already, and go over your log. Maybe you've kept a log of your loved one's changes in their memory or behavior or mood, and always talk it over with the doctor. Even if your loved one has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, you want to keep that log so each doctor visit, you can update the physician on the condition of your loved one. And further, attend caregiver classes and workshops like you're doing today. Go team, lots of spirit today, and talk to professionals in the field. You know, your doctor has very limited time seeing a lot of patients every day, and most doctors don't have a lot of time to sit with you and explain to you all the journey, the journey of Alzheimer's. And so talk to professionals. There's many there at Alzheimer's Services. Ellen is a social worker. I'm sure she's open for an appointment anytime to help you, questions that you have. And then read and discover new research, what's coming down the pike. Enroll in clinical trials. Alzheimer's disease is one of the top 10 diseases that has no treatment, prevention, or cure. So clinical trials are so important. You might want to opt to do that. Discover new things that are going on, breakthroughs in memory, treatment, and self-care that can offer you insights. Last June, the FDA had an accelerated approval of the drug Aduhelm, and it's now in about 50 states. The pharmaceutical company Biogen has slashed its price from $56,000 a year to about $28,000. And it's the first drug that's been across the pipeline or approved since 2003. And it actually attacks the biology of the disease. It reduces the clumps of plaques in the brain of those that have early dementia. So, and then now Medicare is covering on a case-to-case basis. So that's a new discovery and exciting, and it's offering us hope. And so keep updated as you get more educated about the disease. So while you're on the field, I want to give you some skills and strategy builders for a winning team. I want you to keep relationships alive. It is so, so important not to isolate yourself or your loved one. And we have found that during the pandemic, even now, of course, health-wise, you want to protect your loved one. And that's why we're on Zoom today. I understand that, but we want to keep those relationships alive. If you can contact family members by phone or by Zoom or other ways, by videos, keep that alive all the time and keep those connections. Alzheimer's and dementia deaths have increased 16% since the pandemic. And so it's very important to forego that social isolation and keep the relationships alive. Know when it's time to punt, and usually it's time to punt after the diagnosis. As soon as you can, make those decisions. Have an open and honest discussion with you and your loved one about future decisions, whether they be financial decisions, decisions about care, decisions about staying at home or going to a long-term care facility, end-of-life decisions, power of attorney, conservatorship, guardianship, hospice care, a host of decisions you need to make, and sit down. And you can't do them in one day, but of course, maybe you want to enlist other family members too, but make those decisions so you'll know and honor the wishes of the loved one who has Alzheimer's disease. And always seek out resources. That's part of getting educated and knowing all about the disease. Alzheimer's Services has wonderful resources for you there. They're a phone call away, or if you live in the Baton Rouge area, they're a short distance away. You can also seek out resources through your local council on aging. If you or your loved one are veterans, seek the Veterans Administration. The Louisiana Department of Aging and Adult Services is a good resource too. So never hesitate to seek out resources that will help you during your season of Alzheimer's. Most importantly, I want you to get in a huddle with special teams. I want you to join a support group. It's so important to join a support group, either online or in person. You can't believe how much you can share stories and get new perspectives and make friends. So make sure you make it a point to join a support group and set aside time for that. And then learn the language of dementia. And that it's going to be a trial and error, but we have to learn how to communicate effectively with our loved ones with the disease in order to understand where they're coming from, or why they act that way, or why there's emotional outburst. It's a trial and error kind of thing, like I mentioned before, but we definitely develop the language of dementia. And then always validate those feelings and emotions of the loved one. We want to get into their world. This is where understanding and patience comes in, because as the disease progresses, you're going to notice some changes, a lot of changes in your loved one. They're going to be unable to express their emotions or express a need. And so that makes them very frustrated. And so that's when you'll learn about agitation and paranoia and hallucinations and all kinds of behavioral expressions. But value and validate those feelings with that individual, and you'll offer that reassurance. And it's a lot better going when that person is in the emotional outburst. Okay, as your coach, I want you to maintain a good workout routine. It is so important for the individual with Alzheimer's to have a structured routine. Whatever they were doing prior to the diagnosis, try to keep that structure as long as possible to maintain that quality of life. Understand their likes and their dislikes, and focus on the interests and strengths of your loved one. We want to bring out those strengths, whatever they're capable of doing, for as long as they're capable of doing. Even in end-stage Alzheimer's, you can connect with the individual through the 5 senses. We want to keep meal times and favorite foods, so to speak, at a structure. For instance, if the person never ate breakfast, why would you start serving breakfast for that loved one? Unless they really need that nutrition, they're losing weight and the doctor orders it. But again, the just keep the structured routine. Bathing and personal hygiene are great challenges for the Alzheimer's caregiver. We want to give them the dignity and respect in those times of most vulnerability, but also keep the times of bathing or showering. If they did it in the morning, keep it in the morning, or in the evening, vice versa. And understand too, as the person ages and their gait starts progressing, that it might be unable to get in the bathtub if they prefer to bath, unless you have a walk-in tub, so to speak. So you might have to transfer to taking showers, and of course, observe all the safeties in your bathroom with that by having a bench and all that. But bottom line, keep that structured routine too. Appointments and best time of day for activities. Look at your loved one and understand, and that's where observing comes in. When is the optimal time of day with they're more alert and more congenial and they're less anxious? And choose those times to make appointments, like doctor's appointments or haircut appointments, or even times when you want to go out maybe for brunch or a quick bite to eat. Same thing with activities. Have activities on hand that the person enjoys, and you want to have them at the times that that loved one is able and in a mood to enjoy them. Now, they might enjoy them for 10 or 15 minutes and walk away. Again, it's about the process, not the outcome. And then the structured bedtimes and when they wake up. Of course, sleep is very important for both you and the caregiver. So you want to monitor that and make sure that they're not napping all day long, and that way, and sometimes they'll stay up all night. So, but try to keep bedtime at about the same time they used to do it, and their wake up time too. So, these are just some tips for a good structured workout routine. Okay, securing the handoff and communication. This is a skill. Handoffs usually occur between the quarterback and the running back. It's the act of giving the ball to another player. So imagine you're the quarterback and your loved one is the running back, and you're trying to throw the ball. They're trying to catch it. But it's this tug of war, because the disease diminishes the individual's ability to communicate. They have more difficulty expressing their thoughts and emotions, and that's where the frustration comes in, and then it dominoes to behavioral expressions. And then he or she has more difficulty understanding what you're asking, the instruction you're asking. So it's that tug of war. So the handoff is very challenging in the journey of Alzheimer's. But we want to remember to never challenge that person, never challenge what they say. Always stay in their world and follow their conversation. If it's snowing outside, we're going to, talk about the snow and did you ever see snow? But get in their zone and focus on what they're saying at the present moment. We want to overlook any, missteps in language. Maybe they've repeating themselves a lot. Maybe they've asked you questions repeatedly. Maybe they've renamed an object. Maybe they've called you a different name of their mother instead of their spouse. So just overlook those mistakes in languages and avoid correcting them. Most of all, just go along with the conversation and focus on that present moment. And that way you won't get so stressed about everything, and you're getting into their world and they're getting the self-esteem and confidence and carrying on that handoff. All right, but we got to prepare for the blitz. In football, when a lot of players attack the quarterback who tries to throw the ball, that's the blitz. So in caregiving, you're trying to keep this caregiving going. You're trying to get to that comfort zone, and you feel bombarded by all these responsibilities that you have, but also trying to manage the behavioral expressions of your loved one. Now, I said earlier, it's about a need not being met. So we want to respond to the need, not the behavior. It's very human nature to look at the behavior and why are you acting this way, or why are you mad, why are you crying, and asking the why questions. But as caregivers, look beyond the behavior as to what's causing the behavior. What is the need that my loved one needs right now from me that can help him stay calm and secure? If your behavior is reactive, then the loved one's behavior is going to be reactive too, and it's just an ever-ending circle. And you're just going to get frustrated more. So potential causes or needs of the person behind the behavior could be a reaction to loss. Maybe there's a spouse that passed away that was the familiar caregiver, or someone in the household that they're missing. Maybe it's the inability just to meet basic needs. Our loved ones with Alzheimer's get to a point where they can't tell us they need to go to the bathroom. They can't tell us that they're hot or cold. They can't tell us that they want to go for a ride in a car, or they want to enjoy the outside. So again, that's that handoff and communication that they struggle with. And so the inability just to meet the basic needs is a frustration and could be a trigger for behaviors. Always look at medical problems, most often a urinary tract infection. I've seen that over and over when the loved one is behaving most erratically, more than normal outside. Then you need to consult your physician. Look at environmental factors, a change in living arrangements, excessive noise in the household. Sensory impairments. So many of our aging adults, including those with Alzheimer's, have macular degeneration, and so their scope of vision is very limited. They also have hearing impairments. So that can be a trigger for behavioral because they're frustrated with that and they can't get their needs known. Also sundowning, which is a part of the afternoon where they get most anxious and wandering patterns occur. That we can redirect with exercise or music or a different activity. Changing caregivers, again, going back to that structured day and that consistent person that takes care of them. Maybe the caregiver has gone on vacation and has a paid caregiver in the home. And so that can cause some anxiety with the person with Alzheimer's. Travel is kind of disorients the person with Alzheimer's. They're not in their familiar environment. So if you need to travel, take some familiar things with that person. So they'll try to ease the transition of that traveling. We've seen lots of adverse effects from people that go into the hospital or have surgery, especially with anesthesiology. The person seems to be, very disoriented days after or weeks after. So that might be a potential cause of their behavioral expressions. The presence of a lot of house guests, too many people. Try to limit people that want to visit your loved one to maybe 1 or 2 at a time, because more than that can overwhelm them and cause them great anxiety. There's that bathing again. Of course, that's your most vulnerable state. You yourself, me, myself, if anybody wants to bathe me or whatever, that's the most vulnerable state. So they get very anxious about it. So make bath time maybe more soothing, enjoyable, include music, some aromas, favorite aromas like lavender or something like that in the bathroom. Being asked to change clothing is another vulnerable spot that, most people, individuals with Alzheimer's, like to keep on their same clothing day after day as a favorite clothing. Maybe you can pick 2 or 3 outfits at the most and try to interchange them accordingly. And then, of course, that lack of sleep. We all get irritable for a lack of sleep. So make sure your loved one and you get the proper amount of sleep so you can be rested and not have the anxiety or agitation during the day. I don't have to tell you as a coach that practice, practice, practice. And, the old saying, practice makes perfect. No, practice is just to hone in your caregiver skills. We're throwing perfection out of the window. There's no perfection in caregiving. So try to be receptive instead of uneasy. Individuals with Alzheimer's mirror our actions and our emotions. And so if you're uneasy and anxious, he or she will become anxious and uneasy. So always be reassuring and receptive to that person, and make sure that they feel comfortable with you, and be open about things that they're talking about or things you can do. Again, goes back to that creativity about having new perspectives. And try to be curious instead of frustrated. Yes, your loved one might have asked you to go home for the 100,000th time today, and that's really wearing on your nerves. But be curious. Why is he asking? Is he not comfortable in this home? Does he not feel safe in this home? Be curious. What are the triggers that making that loved one behave in that manner? What is the need? What is the need there? So try to be curious instead of frustrated. And then always be open. Be open to all the things that your loved one brings to you during the day. They want you to see that person beyond the disease. They don't want to be pitied. They want to use the abilities that they have and still remain. So enlist them to help you with daily chores or things around the house that they're capable of doing. Just honor their personhood and don't communicate in a way that's condescending. Many of us want to go to that baby talk and talk in a shrill voice like, honey, baby, but that's kind of sending to them. So use adult language when we're communicating it with them. It goes a lot better. All right. There's a lot of stuff I've been telling you here on the field, but before you think about forfeiting the game, remember, and discover that acceptance of what cannot be changed. We have to reach an attitude of acceptance during this journey. The reality is the disease is going to progress and we're here for the long journey. So we have to let go of the control and learn to accept. Those are crucial steps to have a better season of Alzheimer's. And at the end of the day, affirm what is good. It's real easy to see all the negative things that happen during the day, but affirm what is good. Did your loved ones smile at you in a different way? Did y'all listen to a favorite song and dance together? Did y'all laugh together at a comedy on TV? Those are special moments of joy. They might be insignificant to you now, but those are really creating great connections and memories for you, the caregiver. Little things that can emerge like that, they offer hope and gratefulness in the season of Alzheimer's. Eleanor Roosevelt once said in her book, You Learn by Living, you gain strength, courage, and confidence in every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. You are able to say to yourself, I lived through this horror. I can take the next step that comes along. So courage to overcome adversities. If you're constantly focusing on how long the disease is going to last, how much it will cost, how difficult everything was going to be, then you're going to have that fear and discouragement and worry and frustration tag along with you all during your season of Alzheimer's. So you can hide from it or obsess it. But as Eleanor Roosevelt offered, look fear in the face. Facing that fear gives you greater control and a sense of empowerment, and accepting that gives you that sense of empowerment too. So the opposite of fear is courage. So courage means to accepting the things that you cannot change. Okay, now we're going to venture in the worry zone, which I don't want you to get too caught up in the worry zone on our zone defense patterns. Watch getting caught in this worry zone. Worry is often suppressed, and chronic worrying can lead to a host of medical conditions like depression, fatigue, heart issues, cardiovascular issues because of stress. All the what ifs and could haves or the worst case scenarios, they need to be handled in a healthy manner. If you're a chronic worrier, find ways to relieve those worries. Maybe go into a room and set a time of 10 minutes and either talk to yourself or write down all your worries and set aside that time, and you're not going to worry about it anymore. Write those worrisome thoughts. And then worrying rarely leads to solutions. You can worry all you want, but you should refocus into a problem-solving mode, so to speak. Your grandson, for instance, went back to college, so you don't have anyone to keep the yard up. And so you're worrying about who's going to do that. You can't do it. Your loved one can't do it. Who's going to do it? Well, stay focused, hire someone, call some friends and see if you have somebody that can take care of your lawn. So sometimes you hesitate in that worry zone. And, when you hesitate, you're going to miss a lot of plays. Mainly, you're going to miss those moments with your loved one, those moments of joy. And so look at these and think about, is there the reason why you're hesitating? Is there a fear of failure? I think that's the utmost fear caregivers have. I'm going to fail at caregiving. But really, there's no failure in caregiving as long as you're loving and kind and assuring and compassionate, and you'll get it along the way. It's trial and error. You do the best you can do. I love this quote: "You are not better than anyone, but no one is better than you. You are not better than anyone, but no one is better than you." So avoid that sense of you're going to fail. Don't put high expectations on yourself. Get rid of the perfectionism. Get rid of your self-doubts and low confidence. Yes, there are going to be waves of that coming along, but the lack of focus, trying too hard, intimidation from others that are telling you what you need to do. These are, the hesitating is only going to be counterproductive in your caregiving. Just as well as comparison to others, you worry about what others think. Again, the Alzheimer's household is unique to every individual, so your caregiving is not going to be the same as another caregiver. And then making those excuses to find resolutions or to work out problems. Oh, I can't do it. I'm going to fail. Or, those things, they're second guessing. You're talking to yourself. All these thoughts can overshadow the great things you're doing in caregiving on a daily basis. And it can really destroy your self-being and your self-confidence and well-being. So we really need to not hesitate in this worry zone and get out of it as soon as we can. Sometimes, though, with all these emotions, it's okay to be benched. And by that, I mean you're experiencing all these emotions and you have to learn to manage them. We've covered worry and fear, and then there's that G word, guilt. We all suffer it from sometimes, or it's normal and bothersome. You're trying to meet the needs of your loved one, and there goes that feeling of failure, and that dominoes into guilt. So we need to redirect. And of course, there's that good guilt in which maybe I lost patience with my loved one today and screamed or lifted my voice, but I know now to correct it the next time. So that's a good guilt. That reinforces a correction and it challenges you to do better again. That bad guilt, though, is a situation where you have no control over. So you're constantly feeling guilty about that. And these reasons are unrealistic and unproductive. So you need to remove the oughts, the should've, could've, those self-imposed burdens that you place on yourself. Eliminate the always and never. Maybe you promised your loved one something and you can no longer do it. Let go of it and move on. We need to seek balance in that and getting rid of that guilt or removing that guilt. Resentment. This is an emotion you rarely share with others. You're feeling unappreciated. Your loved one's not grateful. Others are enjoying life and I'm not. So you resent that. And it's part of the human experience. And you're drained physically and emotionally. But we have to learn to have self-affirmation, re-energize, release these emotions of resentment, and just give self-acknowledgement, encouragement. Put post-it notes around the house of things you do well, or things that, say you are loved, you're a great caregiver, those cheerleading notes around the house that you need for yourself. Anger is another emotion that might get you benched, and uncontrolled anger can really cause a lot of health problems. So you want to keep anger in check. And what you need to do is forgive yourself, find the root of your anger, do some self-care or journaling if you can, punch a pillow, go into a room and scream if you have to, but you really have to control your anger tendencies, because when you get angry, your loved one can get angry too. Defensiveness is another emotion we often as caregivers experience. You have human nature to get defensive about somebody offering their opinions, or when your caregiving practices are questioned. Of course, we're going to get defensive. I'm doing the best I can. But having that defensive mechanism sometimes protects us from, as a protection mechanism. And so we become closed-minded. So what we want to do is become, open-minded, understand that the people, our family and friends who are offering suggestions or recommendations are only offering that to help you. There's no malice behind that. And so in that way, you can accept that and go along to accepting their help. And then one of the last emotions is grief. And grief can really get you benched, because that feeling that comes over you of all the losses you're suffering during and after the disease, the loss of your loved one as he or she was, the loss of your familiar roles that you had, loss of what was planned future. So you're counting all these losses and you're grieving over them. It's very okay. There's no time limit on grieving, but you do again need to get in a huddle and get in a support group, talk to a professional counselor or friend. Don't let all this grief mull inside you without releasing it or talking to someone. Take time to grieve. Be gentle with yourself most of all. All right, we want to avoid that Hail Mary pass. That's the last resort. So don't get to a point in a journey where you're always reacting. So we want to avoid that last ditch effort and get in that pattern of always reacting. For instance, you stress over the supposed wishes of your loved one. If you didn't have the care planning meeting or talk about the wishes of your loved one, yes, you're going to stress if it's too late over what your loved one would have wished. So that's why it's so important not to wait until the last minute to make these decisions. The conflicts among family members, there again, if we had a solid plan at the beginning of the diagnosis of all the roles each family member was going to take, there wouldn't be a confusion or conflict, and we wouldn't have to throw that Hail Mary pass when we needed help from family members and there's conflict. More and more, I see that when a loved one with Alzheimer's goes to the hospital, for instance, and the social worker comes in and tells the caregiver he or she has to be moved to a long-term care setting, he can no longer stay at home, he needs 24/7 care. This is, when the caregiver reacts because there's no plans in place. There's a rush to make decisions, and maybe later the caregiver feels, well, that wasn't the best possible solution to this. So be proactive instead of reactive. Again, we don't want to throw that Hail Mary pass. And then ignoring stressors of your own. Caregivers, we can't ignore those stressors. It can lead to adverse health conditions. And then presumptions, being in that denial mode all the time, that things will always be the same. They're not going to be the same as the disease progresses, of course, but being in that denial mode and then suddenly realizing that things are changing, we have to throw that Hail Mary pass and no one's there to catch it. I want to remind you too to watch those red zones. We want to avoid fumbles, and I mean falls of your loved ones. It's the greatest risk as the disease progresses because the loved one tends to not pick up their feet. The brain is not telling him to put one foot in front of the other. So that person tends to shuffle maybe their feet. So it's very common for falls, and they're at risk for falls. So make sure you have home safety in place by picking up clutter, making clear ways for your loved one to get around the house, especially to the bathroom. Install handrails and grab bars where your loved one, might fall or where they need the extra comfort of holding on to something. And then, of course, we want to lock up things in cabinets that are hazardous, like cleaning products, any medications, any alcohol, any kind of tools or sharp objects. Those need to be locked up or taken out of the household. Ensure fire safety by getting rid of matches, lighters, and candles, locking them up or hiding them. Keep a fire extinguisher handy. You might want to cover your stovetop knobs too, or unplug your stove. And then for the loved ones who have a tendency to wander, we want to disguise those external entryways or doors. Maybe use the same paint as the door, cover it with a drape or a nice poster of some scenery. Don't put a coat rack by an entryway because that's a sure signal. And someone with Alzheimer's, hey, there's my coat. I can leave now. I'll put on my coat and leave out the door. And then, as added thing, just redirect with an enjoyable activity if they start those wandering patterns, which usually occurs around sundowning at the end of the day. I want to make one note, and one important note about home safety. If you have an individual with Alzheimer's in your home and your loved one perhaps is a gun enthusiast or you own a firearm, you need to remove these firearms from your home immediately. It doesn't work just taking the ammunition out. Many caregivers think that I'll be safe in that way. It doesn't work because what happens if you have taken the ammunition out of this firearm and you call, for instance, an emergency responder one day and your loved one has a gun in his hand? You can imagine the picture and the catastrophic situation there. Emergency responders do not know, number one, your loved one has Alzheimer's or if the gun is loaded or not. So the best practice is to remove those firearms from your house completely. It might be an opportunity for you and your loved one to discuss who wants to inherit these firearms and have a conversation about that too while you're planning. All right, now I want to get you in the comfort zone. So being a caregiver of someone with Alzheimer's means putting your needs first above all things. And so You sometimes neglect to care for your whole self, mind, body, and spirit. So we want to get you to that comfort zone, to that goal. So how do we lift the weights of the disease? And just the weight of stress on our bodies can cause negative or adverse health concerns. Shallow breathing, difficulty sleeping, irritability, depression, trouble focusing, a raised resting heart beat, lack of confidence, even memory loss. It ages the brain. You get nervous. You have a lack of interest socially. All these are big weights, and I mean by stress weights. And so we want to learn how to lift the weights of this disease so we won't have this stress on our body. And one of the ways, or a few of the ways here, meditate, have a practice, maybe 10 minutes a day. There's many meditation practices on YouTube. There's anything from 5 minutes to an hour meditation. Of course, caregivers' time are often limited, but find something, a meditative practice where you can just settle yourself down and pay attention to yourself and have those breathing techniques. Do you even pay attention to your breathing during the day? Every hour, you need to take a big, long breath and exhale and inhale and learn how those breathing techniques can calm you in stressful situations, especially if you're in a stressful situation and you're frustrated with your loved one. You need to have those breathing techniques. Again, schedule that me time, whatever you enjoy doing, journaling if you can, and journaling positive things. Not only name the negative things you're experiencing, but maybe 2 or 3 blessings you've received, the joys instead of the hardships. Prayer, internal reflection, again, along with meditation, listening to music is helpful. Physical activity and good nutrition is important for the both of you. So make sure you have that physical activity, whether it's walking a little bit each day or dancing or doing something physical that can keep that heart pumping. It's healthy for the brain. And always, make sure you have good nutrition and don't neglect meals. Reduce caffeine and sugar intakes. And again, going back to keeping relationships alive, you want to keep socially active. Don't abandon your friends. Have that respite time with your friends and enjoy that. Do things you enjoy. Practice these stress management techniques. Again, getting enough sleep. When my first son was born, my mother said, you need to sleep when the baby sleeps. I think that's an old adage recommendation. Not that your loved one with individual is a baby, but when he or she sleeps, try to sleep at the same time. That being said, you don't want your loved one to nap all day and then they'll be up all night. But just, monitor sleep and both of y'all try to get that good restorative sleep that you need. Laugh more. The benefits of health to laughing are abundant, especially they increase the blood flow to the brain. So find ways to laugh more, look at photos, share memories, look at videos, comedies on TV, whatever, there's a lot of YouTube things about comedies you can put on and enjoy that. And then learn to ask and accept help. And when you ask for help, be specific. I need you to bring a meal over Thursday night because I'll be going to visit my friend and someone's coming. So can you prepare a meal? So be specific on your asking and learn how to accept help without guilt and hesitation. That is such a grace. So we're going to work as a team. So reach out to family and friends and form that action plan for care partnership. Consider respite care. It's very needed, such as adult daycare at Charlie's Place right here, or a few days overnight in outside caregiving to get re-energized. So many assisted living and long-term care settings have respite programs now that you could go weekend or long-term. And then again, I can't stress enough to get in a huddle and join those special teams, join a support group in person or online. You can share your experiences, trade stories, find resources, and most of all, you can make friends. Go over legal issues, power of attorney, advanced directives, any kind of wishes in late stage dementia, Alzheimer's care, hospice, make sure there's a will, guardianship, conservatorship, all these things financially and legally you need to plan to do to secure the wishes of the affected individual. Scoring when it really matters. And that's when you trust your instincts. We all have those gut instincts So choose that first impression, whatever you feel first. Don't try to be a people pleaser. Don't listen to what Johnny or Susie or Teddy or all they're telling you. Okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. You know, trust your instincts. You know what's going to work and what's not. Don't always be down on yourself. Don't be afraid to say no if you can't do it, if you can't make an obligation, if you've missed an appointment. Don't be afraid to say no or apologize. In the same way, don't be afraid to say yes. Yes, I'd like to go to dinner or a movie with you. Let me find somebody to take care of my loved ones. So don't be afraid to say yes. Always be kind and gentle to yourself and let go of things you can't control. We have to surrender those things, and they're out of our control and nothing's going to change it. And then never stop giving up on your hopes and dreams and, the hopes and dreams of your loved one. Lady Gaga made a promise to Tony Bennett that she would make an album of Cole Porter songs with him. And as you know, Tony Bennett is 95. He has Alzheimer's. He had his last concert with Lady Gaga in December. And she made that album with him while he still had Alzheimer's. And she was so grateful that his dream had been realized, and also her dream of singing with him in his last concert. And plus, both of them are up for a Grammy Award. He's the oldest a Grammy nominee in history. So there are hopes and dreams that can be fulfilled or look forward to in the Alzheimer's journey. And going for that extra point, recognize that the individual behind the disease. This is so important. That person never leaves, the essential spirit of that person. Recognize the blessings received each day instead of the hardship. Surely there's one blessing you can gather out of a particularly hard day that you've had with your loved one. And this is a cliche, but yes, there is no I in team. Caregivers cannot do this alone. Remember that. Don't try to do this journey alone. Take care of yourself and create those present moments of joy shared together. It's overwhelming and stressful, these day-to-day responsibilities, but take care of yourself. Life still can have meaning and purpose. So looking toward that goal line, think a bit about what we can do looking toward or looking forward. Times of meaning during caregiving through stories. When my father had vascular dementia and COPD, he would tell me stories about his dad, my grandfather, whom I never met because my grandfather had died when my dad was 15. But he would tell me a lot of stories and I would journal them. And we had wonderful times of sharing through these stories. I never knew that my grandfather was the president of the school board in Laredo, Texas. But these were wonderful stories that I was able to share with my dad during his last stages of the vascular dementia and COPD. So then there's times of reflection and celebration woven into the caregivers' lives. Share those moments. We took my dad to the World War II Museum. They were doing the Bob Hope USO tour show, and they had songs of that era of World War II. My mom and dad sat together and held hands, and it was so loving and touching. Those songs came on. And then at the end of the performance, all the actors and actresses came over to my dad, shook his hand, took pictures with him, thanked him for being a veteran. He glowed like I'd never seen him. And this is a lasting treasure for me now, and pictures that I can always look at. So it was a celebration woven into my mom and dad's lives. Honor and achieve the goals of the caregiver and your loved one in significant ways, just like Lady Gaga did with Tony Bennett. Honor and validate their life, embrace and enjoy, maximize that quality of life, and find the blessings again each day that you might have overlooked. So, did I skip one? Yeah. So recap of being the most valuable caregiver. So again, increase your knowledge about the disease, form a plan and a care team, get support for Team Alzheimer's, gather information, support services, resources, contact Alzheimer's services in the capital area. Look at losses as opportunity for growth and understanding. Look at wins as opportunities to share in gratitude and joy in the present moment. The spirit still remains in the person you love, and be sure to cheer that on all the time, and always celebrate the season. Always celebrate the season. A few questions before you get off the field and go back to the locker room. Remember, review your playbook. Ask you questions. What connects you to joy? What are some things you can do now that might change the game? What are the best ways to share your spirit to keep connected to your loved one? And what are the values you live out each day in caregiving, all placed at the core, the center of caregiving, to sustain health and quality of life for you and your loved one? Now, these might be deep questions or just something for you to think about that can build your skills and strategies for Team Alzheimer's. Just connect you to joy for you and your loved one. So now I think it's about time to go back to the locker room. I appreciate you joining Team Alzheimer's. I know we had a national championship this week, but nothing overshadows the MVCs that are listening today, the most valuable caregivers. And I appreciate you joining me for this time on the field. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. That was an amazing presentation. Such a good message, I think, to keep us all motivated in such a hard role that so many of us here in this presentation today find yourselves in. So now we have time for questions with Dana or comments. If you'd like, you can go ahead and put the chat, anything in the chat box down below. And I'll give everybody a few minutes just to enter any questions you may have or comments.
And I do have my email on this last slide. So if you think of something after the presentation, please email me. I'll be happy to answer you.
And I will include that too in the follow-up email as well, just in case for anybody that has further questions. See. And the mute option is also turned off, and I would like to unmute themselves if they have any questions as well. Dana, can you tell us a little bit more about your upcoming book that's coming out, where we'll be able to find it and things like that?
Okay, the website's on this last slide on Equinox Publishing. I think it's in the queue for September, October this year to be published. And it's really journaling most of all, my oldest grandson, from birth to all his stories, little anecdotes he told me, and kind of equating them to the Alzheimer's journey with the trip back in time. So there's just a lot of anecdotes at the beginning of each chapter of a conversation between myself and one of my grandchildren. And then it goes and how it relates to a particular characteristic of Alzheimer's. On the website, you'll find a table of contents, and each chapter is outlined and has a synopsis so you can get a better idea of what's covered: behavior, communication, grieving, emotions, care settings, statistics. They're all in there in those chapters.
Awesome. I look forward to reading it. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I am saving these chat comments. We're getting a lot of comments, Dana, in the chat for you. So I will be sure to save those. I'll read a few of them too if you have some time. Sure. Pam, one of our support group facilitators, shared today. This is very timely. One of our group members experiencing crisis with her loved one today. So she'll be forwarding this link over to her. And we have another comment. Great presentation. I have sitters for my stepmom, so I plan to share this with them. What do you suggest for issues with incontinence, handling her frustration, embarrassment?
Yes, that goes back with hygiene, and make sure at first to talk with your doctor. It could be a medical issue. Of course, with incontinence, I believe I had a column relate, or it's coming up about incontinence. We want to make sure that we toilet the person, get on a regular routine of possibly going every 2 hours. Make sure that they have, if they're wearing such like a adult incontinence product, that it's always clean. It's hard for people with Alzheimer's, again, to get used to those. They might tug at them or pull at them, but it just takes an adjustment. Make sure that the person, when he or she does void, that they're cleaned immediately so they can prevent bed sores. It's just getting, again, the person on a structure of a routine. There are medications I think the physician can prescribe for incontinence, but it does go along with the latter stages of the disease and, of course, with aging.
Thank you so much. We have another question that came in. How do I discuss my dad's memory issues? He acknowledges it, but doesn't see that he needs to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. That's tough to have that conversation with your dad. And so many people are afraid of the A word, Alzheimer's. So I wouldn't approach him by saying, hey, Dad, I think you're getting Alzheimer's. Have the gentle conversation and have specific instances like, Dad, I noticed you forgot your golf game the other day, and you never forget that. Can I help you with something in that area? You know, kind of put it on yourself, be gentle and give examples so that person doesn't get agitated or angry, so to speak. But you know, it's very, very important to have that conversation, and even and it might take 2 or 3 days in different spots, you know, 10 or 15-minute spots to do that. And also you might want to say, I really feel better if, you know, we need to know what's going on. It could be your heart, because there's lack of oxygen getting into your brain. It can cause memory impairment. So I really think you need a good physical exam, Dad. And would you do this for me? You know, put it in such a way like that.
Thank you so much. Great advice. That looks like all the questions we have for now, Dana. Like I said, I'm saving all these awesome comments that you're getting. And just a couple of little closing announcements. In case you missed it in the beginning, I will be sending out a follow-up email after this presentation with the link to the recording. Feel free to share that link with anybody that you think could benefit from this presentation. There'll also be a link to a survey. If you could please complete that survey, tell us a little bit more about your experience today. And welcome back to our 2022 Lunch and Learn. We'll be back next month with a presentation on the impacts of UTIs and dehydration on people with dementia. So hope to see many of you there. And again, thank you, Dana. Fantastic presentation. Such wonderful advice. Really can't thank you enough for taking the time to prepare all of this and present it for us today.
Good. Enjoy being your coach.
Thank you. Thanks everyone.
Hey, Dana and Ellen.
Yeah.
This is Kim Chauvin. I'd like to add something really quick to the person who asked about the incontinence issue. One thing I found with Mom was that helped was besides getting her into pins, she felt more confident if she also had like the poise pads on with that. And that way, if she kind of had a little accident on the way, because while she was pretty continent up until toward the very end, sometimes she just couldn't make it to the bathroom. But I did find that she felt more confident sometimes having that extra pad. So that's something to consider. Also, they're not free, but Walmart, actually, I'm sure you can do them elsewhere, but they usually have some pretty good specials, and you can get them where they can, like in pretty good stacks that you'll get, like the larger bundles that you get, the less they cost. And they different sizes, you'll have to see what works for them. But it does help for them to be comfortable with something like that. And even if it goes, try to stay away from the word diaper. They do not like that. Use the word brief. And you probably go, especially with males too, you'll go a lot further with that.
Thank you for that. That's great advice.
Thank you, Kim. And thanks again to everybody so much. And we hope to see y'all next month. Thank you, Dana.
Thank you. Have a good day. Have a good week. Bye-bye.